We begin in a small kingdom, in the northern part of Greece, in a region called Macedonia. The year is around 356 before the Common Era. The landscape here is different from the more famous cities to the south. It is rougher, more open, wide plains bordered by mountains, rivers running cold from the highlands, forests of oak and pine covering the upper slopes. Macedonia at this time is not considered by the southern Greek city-states to be entirely Greek. The Macedonians speak a dialect that others find difficult to understand. Their customs are slightly different. Their kings drink unmixed wine. They hunt on horseback. They keep a court that is more like the courts of the older Eastern kingdoms than like the democratic assemblies of Athens or Corinth. The king of Macedonia at this time is Philip II. He is a capable ruler. He is reorganizing his army. He is expanding his kingdom. He is slowly and methodically bringing the Greek city-states under his influence. In the summer of 356, a son is born to Philip and his wife Olympias. The child is named Alexander. He will later be called Alexander the Great, but for now he is simply a child. Born in the royal palace at Pella, the capital of Macedonia. Pella is a city of some size for this period. It sits near a lake, connected to the sea by a navigable river. The palace is large by Macedonian standards. Its floors are decorated with pebble mosaics, intricate images made from small colored stones, animals and mythological scenes. These mosaics have been excavated by archaeologists in the 20th century. They give a sense of the world Alexander grew up in. The childhood of Alexander is shaped by two things above all others: his mother and his education. Olympias is from a royal family in Epirus, a region to the west. She is a strong presence in Alexander's early life. She tells him stories. She teaches him about his lineage. She traces his ancestry on her side back to the hero Achilles. Alexander grows up with Achilles as a model, a warrior hero of the old stories. He carries a copy of Homer's Iliad throughout his later campaigns. When Alexander is around 13 years old, a new tutor arrives, the philosopher Aristotle. Aristotle is one of the most important thinkers in the ancient world. He has studied under Plato in Athens. He has written on logic, biology, politics, ethics, poetry, and many other subjects. Philip of Macedonia invites him to tutor his son. Aristotle teaches Alexander in a place called Mysa, a garden setting with covered walkways. Alexander learns alongside other boys of the Macedonian nobility. The curriculum is broad: philosophy, medicine, rhetoric, literature, science as understood in this period. The relationship between Alexander and Aristotle lasts several years. It shapes Alexander's habits of mind, his curiosity about the natural world, his interest in ideas. Throughout his later campaigns, Alexander sends biological specimens back to Aristotle. Plants and animals encountered in distant lands. Aristotle uses this material in his own research. The connection between the conqueror and the philosopher continues even across great distances. Alexander also learns to ride and fight during these years. There is a story, well known in ancient sources, about a horse. A large, difficult horse that no one at the Macedonian court could control. The horse was named Bucephalas. Alexander, watching the failed attempts to ride it, notices that the horse is shying from its own shadow. He turns the horse toward the sun. The shadow falls behind. The horse calms. Alexander mounts it. This story is recorded by the ancient biographer Plutarch. Whether it happened exactly as described cannot be known. But Bucephalas is a real horse. He carries Alexander through many campaigns. A city in what is now Pakistan is later named Bucephala, in the horse's memory, after his death on campaign. The physical training of the young Alexander is intense. Running, weapons practice, riding. The young men of the Macedonian nobility are expected to be capable soldiers. This is a martial culture. Hunting is training for war, and Alexander hunts. He hunts lions. He hunts boar. He practices the skills that will carry him across the known world. By the time Alexander is 16, his father Philip trusts him with real responsibility. When Philip campaigns in the east, he leaves Alexander as regent, in charge of Macedonia, 16. This is not unusual for the period. Young men in royal families of the ancient world take on responsibility early, but it reflects Philip's confidence in his son. A group of people in Thrace rebels during Philip's absence. Alexander leads an army against them. He defeats them. He founds a settlement in the region. He names it Alexandropolis, named after himself. He is 16 years old. At the Battle of Chaeronea in 338, Philip fights the combined forces of Athens and Thebes. This is one of the decisive battles of Greek history. Alexander, now 18, commands the cavalry on one flank of the Macedonian army. He leads a charge at the right moment. The Theban sacred band, an elite infantry unit, is destroyed. The battle ends with Macedonia dominant over the Greek city-states. 2 years later, Philip is killed. He is assassinated at a celebration. The circumstances are complex and not fully understood. Alexander, at 20 years old, becomes king of Macedonia. The transition is not entirely smooth. There are rivals, other possible claimants to the throne. Alexander moves quickly. He secures the loyalty of the army. He deals with those who threaten his position. Within a short time, he is firmly in control. The Greek city-states, hearing of Philip's death, see an opportunity to reassert their independence. Thebes rises in revolt. Alexander marches south. He moves with speed that surprises everyone. He reaches Thebes before they have fully prepared. The city of Thebes is taken. It is largely destroyed. The population is enslaved. Only the temples and the house of the poet Pindar are spared. Alexander has a respect for poets and for sacred places. This is a practical decision as much as an aesthetic one. It sends a message to the other Greek city-states. The message is clear. Macedonia is in control. But Alexander does not intend to remain in Greece. He has a much larger plan. He intends to invade Persia. The Persian Empire is the largest empire the world has yet seen. It stretches from the Aegean coast in the west to the borders of India in the east, from the steppes of Central Asia in the north to the deserts of Egypt and Arabia in the south. It is governed by a great king. At this time, the king is Darius III. The empire has vast resources, vast armies, a sophisticated administrative system, dozens of subject peoples, hundreds of different languages spoken within its borders. The idea of a Greek campaign against Persia has a long background. The Persian Wars of the early 5th century, when Persia invaded Greece, are still in living cultural memory. The Battle of Marathon, the stand at Thermopylae, the burning of Athens. These events, roughly 150 years earlier, have shaped Greek identity. Philip had begun organizing a pan-Greek campaign of revenge and conquest. Alexander inherits this plan and expands it enormously. In the spring of 334, Alexander crosses the Hellespont, the narrow strait between Europe and Asia. He is 22 years old. He leads an army of perhaps 40 to 50,000 men, Macedonian infantry, Greek allied troops, cavalry, engineers, supply workers, physicians. Before the army advances, Alexander goes to the site of Troy. Troy is ancient, the legendary city of Homer's Iliad. Whether the historical Troy of the Bronze Age corresponds to the city in the stories is a question of scholarship. But Alexander believes in the connection. He makes offerings at the tomb believed to be that of Achilles. His friend Hephaestion makes offerings at the tomb of Patroclus. Achilles and Patroclus are the great pair of the Iliad. Alexander sees himself in Achilles. This is not incidental. It is central to how he understands his own life. The first major battle with Persian forces takes place at the Granicus River, a river in what is now northwestern Turkey. The Persian forces are drawn up on the far bank. Alexander leads cavalry across the river, into the water, up the opposite bank, into the Persian line. The battle is won. After the Granicus, Alexander moves south along the Aegean coast. City after city opens its gates or is taken. Many cities in this region are Greek-speaking. They have been under Persian rule. Alexander presents himself as a liberator to these populations. He removes Persian-appointed rulers and installs democratic or pro-Macedonian governments. He reduces or eliminates taxes in some places. He allows existing customs to continue. This is a practical policy. It is easier to hold territory that cooperates than territory that resists. He reaches Gordium, an ancient city in what is now central Turkey. There is an old wagon in the citadel at Gordium. Its yoke is tied with a knot of cornel bark. The knot is elaborate. The ends are hidden. A tradition holds that whoever unties this Gordian knot will rule Asia. According to ancient sources, Alexander either untied it or cut it with his sword. The sources differ on which, but the tradition of the Gordian knot passes into history as a symbol of cutting through a difficult problem with directness. Alexander continues south and east. He reaches Cilicia, in what is now southern Turkey. He becomes ill here. He swims in a cold river. He develops a fever. His physicians treat him. He recovers. The army waits. In 333, near the town of Issus, Alexander meets the main Persian army. Darius himself is present. The Persian army is much larger, but the terrain at Issus is narrow, a coastal plain between the mountains and the sea. The larger Persian army cannot spread out fully. Its numbers are less of an advantage. Alexander commands his cavalry on the right flank. He drives toward the center of the Persian line, toward where Darius stands in his chariot. The Persian line wavers. Darius withdraws from the battlefield. The Persian army collapses. After Issus, the Persian camp is taken. The royal family of Persia is captured. The mother of Darius, his wife, his daughters. Alexander treats them with respect. He honors the title and dignity of the Queen Mother Sisygambes. Ancient sources record that he speaks to her with care and courtesy. He keeps them under his protection throughout his campaigns. After Issus, Alexander does not pursue Darius immediately. He turns south. He moves along the coast of what is now Lebanon and Israel. His goal is to secure the Mediterranean coast before moving into Persia proper. He does not want Persian naval power to threaten his supply lines from behind. The city of Tyre refuses to surrender. Tyre is a Phoenician city. It is partly on the mainland and partly on an island just offshore. The island portion is strongly fortified. Alexander builds a causeway, a mole of earth and stone, extending from the mainland to the island. Takes months to build. The Tyrians resist fiercely. They attack the construction. They use fire ships. They throw materials from the walls. Eventually, the causeway reaches the island. Siege towers and rams are brought close. Walls are breached. The city is taken after a siege of about 7 months. The causeway Alexander built is still there, buried under a wider peninsula that formed as sediment accumulated around it over the centuries. Modern Tyre, the city of Sour in Lebanon, sits on what began as Alexander's causeway. He continues south to Egypt. Egypt is part of the Persian Empire, but the Egyptians have not always been willing subjects of Persia. They have revolted several times. When Alexander arrives, there is little resistance. The Persian satrap surrenders. In Egypt, Alexander is welcomed. He visits the ancient temples. He makes offerings in the Egyptian way. He is recognized as Pharaoh, the son of Ammonius, the Egyptian god. He travels to the oracle of Ammonius at the Siwa oasis. A long journey across the desert. The oracle is consulted. What exactly is said there is not recorded clearly in the ancient sources. Alexander speaks to the priest privately. He tells people afterward that he received the answer he was hoping for. The details remain unknown. In Egypt, Alexander founds a city. He walks out the lines of it himself, measuring and planning. Flour is used to mark the layout because chalk is not available. Birds come and eat the flour. His advisors consider this a bad omen. His seers interpret it differently, as a sign that the city will be rich and will feed many peoples. The city is Alexandria. It is built at the mouth of the Nile, on the Mediterranean coast. It becomes one of the greatest cities of the ancient world. Its library will become the most famous repository of knowledge in antiquity. Its lighthouse will be counted among the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Alexander leaves Egypt in 331. He crosses into Mesopotamia. He crosses the Euphrates and the Tigris, 2 great rivers, the rivers of an ancient civilization. Babylon, one of the oldest cities in the world, lies ahead. But first, another battle. At Gaugamela, in what is now northern Iraq, Alexander meets the Persian army again. This time the terrain is open. Darius has chosen the ground carefully. He wants space for his cavalry and his scythe chariots. He has the ground leveled. The Battle of Gaugamela is the largest battle of the campaign. The Persian forces are numerous. Alexander's army is smaller, but the Macedonian phalanx is deeply trained. Each soldier carries a long spear called a sarissa, 18 feet long, perhaps longer. The sarissas of the front ranks extend beyond the front of the formation, a wall of spear points moving forward. Alexander again leads his cavalry on the right. He watches for a gap in the Persian line. When one opens, he drives into it, straight toward Darius. Darius again withdraws. The Persian army, with its king gone from the field, loses cohesion. It breaks. Gaugamela is the decisive battle. The Persian Empire effectively has been conquered. After Gaugamela, Alexander enters Babylon. The city opens its gates. He is received as a conqueror. He makes offerings to Marduk, the great god of Babylon. He respects the religious customs of the city. He gives orders for the restoration of temples that had been damaged. He follows the pattern established in Egypt and the Aegean coast. Respect for local customs. Recognition of local gods. a ruler who fits himself to the existing structure rather than demanding it remake itself for him. He moves on to Susa, another of the great cities of the Persian Empire. The treasury there is enormous, accumulated wealth of generations of Persian kings, gold, silver, stored grain, luxury goods. Alexander takes control of these resources. They fund his further campaigns. He moves to Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid Persian dynasty. The great palace complex there is one of the architectural wonders of the ancient world. Vast columns, stone reliefs showing tribute bearers from all the subject peoples of the empire. A place of enormous grandeur. Alexander takes the treasures of Persepolis. The palace is later burned. Ancient sources describe a celebration in which fire is set to the palace. Whether this is a deliberate policy decision or the result of a drunken celebration is debated in the ancient sources and among modern historians. The ruins of Persepolis stand in Iran today. The stone columns still rise from the platform. The carved reliefs still show the processions of tribute bearers. The burning was real. The columns survived. Darius, the Persian king, flees eastward. He is eventually killed by his own companions, by a satrap named Bessus, who attempts to take the Persian throne himself. When Alexander finds the body of Darius, he covers it with his own cloak. He arranges for it to be sent to Persepolis for burial in the royal tomb, a gesture of respect toward the man who was king of the largest empire in the world. But the campaign does not end with the death of Darius. Alexander continues east, into the mountains of what is now Afghanistan, into Bactria, into Sogdia. These are difficult lands, high mountains, cold winters, fierce local resistance. The campaigns in this region take several years. They are harder in some ways than the set-piece battles against the Persian army. Guerrilla fighting, mountain passes, difficult terrain. In Bactria, Alexander meets a woman named Roxanne. She is the daughter of a Bactrian nobleman named Oxyartes. Alexander marries her. It is a political marriage as well as a personal one. It helps secure local alliances. Roxanne will later give birth to Alexander's son. Alexander presses further east, into what is now Pakistan and northern India. He crosses the Hindu Kush mountains. He descends into the plains. He crosses the Indus River. He reaches the Punjab. The rivers of the Punjab are wide and numerous. The Hydaspes, the Acesines, the Hydrotes. He crosses them one by one. At the Hydaspes River in 326, he faces a king named Porus. Porus commands an army that includes war elephants, large Indian elephants trained for battle. The Macedonian horses are afraid of the elephants. Alexander develops tactics to deal with them. He uses his infantry to surround individual elephants. He uses javelins and arrows to wound them. Wounded elephants panic. They turn and move in unpredictable directions. They become as dangerous to the forces around them as to the enemy. The Battle of the Hydaspes is won. Porus is captured. When Alexander asks him how he wishes to be treated, Porus replies, according to ancient sources, that he wishes to be treated as a king. Alexander is impressed by this answer. He restores Porus to his kingdom. He extends his territory. He makes Porus an ally. Beyond the Hydaspes there are more rivers, more kingdoms, more territory. Alexander wishes to continue east, to see what is there, to reach the Eastern Ocean, which he believes is not far away. But his army does not wish to continue. They have been marching for years, thousands of kilometers from home. They are tired. Many are sick. They want to go home. The officers speak to Alexander. They tell him the men will not march further east. Alexander withdraws to his tent. He stays there for 3 days. He hopes the army will change its mind. The army does not change its mind. At the Hyphasis River, Alexander builds 12 large altars, an offering to the gods, a marker of how far the campaign has reached. And then he turns the army around. The return journey is difficult. Alexander divides the forces. Part of the army sails down the Indus River toward the sea. Part of the army marches through the Gadrosian Desert, what is now the Makran region of Pakistan and Iran. It is one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Extreme heat, no water, no food in the desert. The march through Gadrosia is one of the most punishing episodes of the entire campaign. Many soldiers and camp followers die of thirst and hunger. The losses in the desert are significant. The ancient sources describe the suffering clearly. Alexander emerges from the desert. He reaches Persia. He reunites with the forces that came by sea, commanded by Nearchus. He begins the process of administering the vast territory he has conquered. He is back in Babylon by 323. He is making plans. Plans for an expedition to Arabia. Plans for administrative reorganization. Plans for blending Macedonian and Persian cultures. He has already encouraged his officers to marry Persian women. He himself holds a great ceremony at Susa where many of his officers take Persian wives. He wears Persian clothing sometimes. He adopts elements of Persian court ceremony. These things make some of his Macedonian companions uncomfortable. They are accustomed to a Macedonian style of kingship, less formal, less ceremonial. The distance between Alexander and his companions grows in these later years. In June of 323, Alexander falls ill. He has been at a dinner. He drinks heavily. He develops a fever over the following days. The fever does not break. He grows weaker. He cannot speak. His soldiers, worried, are allowed to file past his bed. He recognizes them. He nods or raises his eyes to each one, but he cannot speak. After roughly 12 days of illness, Alexander dies. He is 32 years old. He is in Babylon. He has been king of Macedonia for 13 years. He has marched his army from the shores of the Aegean to the banks of the Indus. He has conquered the Persian Empire. He has founded dozens of cities. He has crossed the Hindu Kush and the Gadrosian Desert. He has never lost a battle. The cause of his death is not certain. Ancient sources offer various explanations. Poison has been suggested. Typhoid fever is one modern medical hypothesis. Excessive alcohol over many years contributing to a weakened constitution. The truth is not known. When Alexander is asked, while still capable of speech, to whom he leaves his kingdom, his answer in some ancient sources is given as the strongest, or to the best. This phrase, if it was spoken, anticipates what follows, because what follows is a long period of conflict among his generals, his successors, called the Diadochi, the successors in Greek. The empire does not hold together. It is too large, too diverse, too dependent on the single person of Alexander. His generals fight among themselves for decades. The empire is divided. Ptolemy takes Egypt. He establishes a dynasty that will rule Egypt for nearly 3 centuries. The last of the Ptolemaic line is Cleopatra VII. She dies in 30 before the Common Era, nearly 300 years after Ptolemy first takes Egypt. Seleucus takes much of the eastern territory. He establishes the Seleucid Empire. It covers much of what was the Persian Empire. Two eventually fragments. Antigonus and his descendants fight over Macedonia and Greece. The Antigonid dynasty eventually stabilizes control over that region. These successor kingdoms, for all their conflict, carry something forward. They carry Greek language and culture into the East, into Egypt, into Persia, into Mesopotamia, into Central Asia. Greek becomes the language of administration, of trade, of intellectual life across a vast area. This spread of Greek culture following Alexander's conquests is called Hellenism. The Hellenistic Age. It lasts for roughly 3 centuries, until Rome absorbs these kingdoms one by one. The influence of Alexander's campaigns on the cultural and intellectual life of the ancient world is lasting. The cities he founded, particularly Alexandria in Egypt, become centers of learning. The great library of Alexandria accumulates texts from many traditions: Greek, Egyptian, Babylonian, Persian. Scholars in Alexandria study mathematics, astronomy, medicine, literature. The work done there shapes the development of knowledge for centuries. The roads and trade routes established or consolidated during the campaigns continue to function. Goods move between the Mediterranean world and India and Central Asia along these routes. Ideas move as well. The blending of Greek and Eastern traditions in art and thought produces new forms. A style of sculpture found in Gandhara, in what is now Pakistan and Afghanistan, combines Greek artistic conventions with Buddhist subjects. The seated Buddha in a naturalistic style, showing clear Greek artistic influence, appears in this region, a distant echo of Alexander's passage. Alexander himself becomes a figure of legend very quickly. Stories accumulate around him. Many of them are not historical. A collection of stories called the Alexander Romance circulates widely across many cultures. In Greek, in Syriac, in Arabic, in Persian, in Ethiopian, in Old French, in countless other languages. The historical Alexander becomes surrounded by layers of legend. He is claimed as a hero, a prophet, a godlike figure by many different traditions. In Iran, a tradition develops that views Alexander differently, as a destroyer, as the one who burned Persepolis, as the one who ended the Achaemenid dynasty. History is always seen from more than one direction. The conqueror and the conquered see the same events with different eyes. The real Alexander, as best the historical record preserves him, is a complex figure, capable of great strategic intelligence, capable of respecting the cultures he encountered, capable of building and founding and organizing, also capable of decisions that caused great suffering, the destruction of Thebes, the burning of Persepolis, the deaths of those who opposed him, the hardships his army endured in the Gedrosian desert. He lived in a world with values different from our own. Conquest and military excellence were among the highest values of his culture. He pursued those values with extraordinary consistency. From the moment he became king at 20 until the moment he fell ill at 32. 12 years of nearly continuous campaign. The body of Alexander is placed in a golden coffin, later in a glass or crystal coffin according to some sources. It is eventually taken to Alexandria. Ptolemy secures the body. It becomes a site of veneration. Later rulers come to pay their respects. Julius Caesar visits the tomb when he comes to Alexandria centuries later. Augustus Caesar also visits. The tomb of Alexander in Alexandria eventually disappears from the historical record. Its location today is unknown, but his cities remain. Alexandria in Egypt still stands, a city of millions, on the same site that he walked out himself with flour and measuring tools in 331. Herat in Afghanistan was one of his Alexandrias. Kandahar preserves in its name a corruption of Iskandaria, the Arabic form of Alexandria. Khujand in Tajikistan was Alexandria Esgate, Alexandria the furthest east of his foundations. These cities are still inhabited. People live in them, work in them, walk the ground above the ancient layers. We slow down now. The narration comes gently toward its close. It is a spring evening in Babylon. In 323, the city is ancient. Its walls are thick and high. The Euphrates moves through it, slow and brown. Palm trees line the banks. In a palace by the river, Alexander is resting. He has been unwell for days. The warm air of Babylonian spring moves through the open spaces. The sounds of the city are outside. Somewhere in the city there are markets still busy, lamps being lit as the evening comes. And somewhere to the west, in Macedonia, where it began, the mountains are still cold in the spring evenings. The pines on the upper slopes are the same pines that were there when he was a boy. The rivers run as they always ran, clear and cold from the heights. The world he moved through was vast, and he moved through it quickly. In 12 years, from the Hellespont to the Indus, from the Black Sea to the deserts of Egypt, a distance that took months to travel in each direction, covered again and again, by tens of thousands of people, walking, and behind them the cities, and the roads, and the trade, and the mixing of ideas, and the long, slow transformation of the ancient world, that his campaigns set in motion, and that would take centuries to fully unfold.